Wednesday, over 200 tourists ended up being stuck on Mount Barujari, a volcano in Indonesia, after it erupted. The group of tourists signed up to walk up the mountain the Sunday before the eruption. Overall, there were 389 of them. 120 of them successfully walked down Mount Baru. Overall, there were 389 of them. 120 of them successfully walked down Mount Barujari by Wednesday, but 250 tourists are still missing. Indonesian officials are searching for them to make sure they make it safely back to civilization.
Experts are raising the possibility that melting ice in Greenland could expose toxic materials left behind from the Cold War. It involves a U.S. military camp in northwest Greenland that was abandoned in the mid-1960s. Camp Century was a complex of tunnels dug into the ice. When the camp was abandoned, thousands of tons of waste were left behind. The material includes tanks of diesel fuel, radioactive coolant, and toxic chemicals known as PCBs. It was left nearly 120 feet below the surface. At the time, military officials believed it would be safely entombed in ice for thousands of years. But now a new study suggests that because of the melting ice, the material could be exposed much sooner, possibly by the end of the century. That could pose a threat to the environment. It's also raising questions about what should be done about it and who's responsible.
This video is incredible. I mean, did you see that? Wow. There's lightning, there's debris flying all over the place. This was captured in Layton, Utah from just a couple of days ago. And a lot of people were convinced that this was from a tornado. But the reality is this was not from a tornado. The National Weather Service went in and they did a storm damage survey and they were trying to distinguish, was this a tornado? But they said no, this was actually caused by straight line winds. And we were seeing that debris getting pushed in the same direction that the wind was blowing. You can see it barely missed these vehicles. And from what we understand, nobody was hurt in this. Thank goodness. At the rate we're currently going, the Earth's temperature is apparently going to climb 7 degrees higher in the next few thousand years. That's according to a new study that's showing data indicating the Earth is warmer than it's been in the last 120,000 years, and that greenhouse gases may warm the planet more than we previously thought. Now, this research comes from Carolyn Schneider, who is a climate policy official at the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency. Her findings recently appeared in the journal Nature, and her data is collected from dozens of different sea surface temperature locations from across the globe. Now, she's looked at all sorts of things like the acidity of the water, the species that inhabit the water, and other factors like carbon dioxide and heat levels. Now, of course, Ms. Schneider could only look at some of this data going back so far because it's not like the science and the buoy data has been charted for hundreds of thousands of years. So some of her research is based on rough estimates, and she admits there's a large margin of errors. Still, we certainly believe that she and other scientists who dedicate their lives to this should be commended for their work. Although it should also be mentioned that not all scientists are agreeing with these latest findings, and that this has already sparked great debate on how Earth's climate will change in the future.
Massive wildfire burning out of control in the mountains south of San Jose, California, forcing hundreds of people from their homes. As crews work to battle them from above, right now, the fire is only about 10% contained. Senior correspondent Adam Housley is live in Los Angeles. Adam, I grew up in California. Boy, those fires are staggering when they get burning. What is the latest on this one?
Yeah, and you know, being from California as well, in Northern California where I'm from, you don't see fires like this in areas like Santa Cruz very often. It's an area that's generally a bit more mild as compared to other parts of the state. And right now, really, it's like a furnace when you step outside in much of California. And whether you're along the coastline or you're inland, this fire began on Monday when it was 97-degree heat in the hills above Santa Cruz. That's just south of San Jose, just south of the Silicon Valley. That's where this fire is burning. It's called the Loma Fire. More than 3,000 acres. There are 500 firefighters on it. There's no cause of yet. You mentioned 10% contained, but it's very difficult terrain to fight this in. Everything's very dry here in California. This drought just doesn't want to seem to end. We know there have been a number of homes and buildings destroyed. Now, while the fire is obviously very serious business, people did not really want to evacuate in many cases. A lot of the people down here in more rural areas, they like to live out in that area and they want to try to save their homes. But firefighters warn about these brutal fire conditions everybody's facing.
I want to stay here, you know, I don't think it's really going to hit us. And then all of a sudden it was like, no, it's coming. I can see flames from Mini Pacheco.
We have very, very, very dry fuel up there. We have steep terrain, and we have territory that hasn't burned in 50 plus years, kind of making the perfect storm for this event right now.
Heavy rainfall from Typhoon Meiji has caused a landslide in a Lishui City village in East China's Zhejiang province. Up to 30 people are missing and dozens of houses have been damaged. Officials took dozens of villagers to safety in the early afternoon, but some refused to leave. 4 of the injured were taken to hospitals and rescue operations are ongoing. The local meteorological station has issued an orange alert for heavy rain, which is the 3rd highest in China's 4-level system.
Merter'de öğle saatlerinde yol çöktü. Çökme Merter Çam Sokak'ta meydana geldi. Bazı araçlar çöken yol nedeniyle oluşan göçeye düştü. İtfaiye ekipleri Merter'de kaldırımın çökmesi üzerine olay yerine gitti. Olayda bir kişi yaralanırken araçları kurtarma çalışmalarının devam ettiği ve çökmenin nedeninin araştırıldığı belirtildi.
Environmental experts say they're not surprised by a new report which finds that more than 9 out of 10 people worldwide live in areas with excessive air pollution. The World Health Organization urged politicians and leaders to improve policies to confront the problem. Its report, published on Monday, highlighted countries such as India and China as expected, but also said the Eastern Mediterranean and Western Pacific were badly affected. In Russia, Greenpeace blames the authorities, saying they don't take the problem seriously enough. Today, questions related to environmental protection that may well cause a growth in the death rate are not a priority in our country, although it may seem that Russia is a country where such questions should be discussed. Apart from air pollution, today hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people live in radioactively polluted territories. In New Delhi, the level of the smallest particles in the air is 25 times the international safe limit. Indian researchers also blame a lack of official action against the poor air quality. At least they point out they're not alone.
We have this image that the European world has a very good air quality, and also so we have that image that only the Asian cities, only the Asian countries, and also the African continent has this problem of air pollution. But the best thing is this report actually tells that the European world is also facing the similar problem.
Despite some measures restricting car use in New Delhi, some 1,500 new vehicles are said to take to the roads every day.
Taking to the streets, calling for justice in Tulsa, Oklahoma, after an unarmed black man was shot to death by a white officer. And now police say they found drugs in that man's car.
But attorneys for Terrence Crutcher's family say the discussion of drugs is taken away from questions about the use of deadly force. The state medical examiner's office says toxicology reports for Crutcher are still pending. Officer Betty Shelby, who fired the fatal shot, says Crutcher was shot because he reached in his vehicle.
He looks at her, and his left hand breaks the plane of where the window would be, as if he's reaching in. And at that time, she fired one shot. She was in fear of her life.
How could he be reaching into the car if the window is up and there's blood on the glass?
The Justice Department is still investigating. Meantime, several tweets linked to a local police chief are making the rounds on the internet.
Middletown Chief Rodney Mooterspaw is tired of police shootings across the country, and he's letting people know. Local 12's Perry Shively has more on his reaction on social media. Perry?
Sheila, Chief Rodney Mooterspaw has had enough. He's tired of the police shootings happening around the country, fed up with the negative effect it has on all officers of the law. He took to social media to talk about the incident, and he didn't hold back. Mooterspaw says he's sick of all the police shootings and says some officers are making all officers look bad. He later said that he's been in that situation many times and that you do whatever it takes to protect a life first. The police chief was referring to the shooting of Terrence Crutcher in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Mooterspaw also retweeted a tweet posted by his son. That one reads, "My dad's a great police chief. If anyone needs a positive leadership example, Go watch him for a day. Muterspaw is a longtime veteran officer with the Middletown Police Department. Sheila, back to you.
Thank you, Perry. And in just a few minutes, we will be covering more protests overnight in another police officer involved shooting, this one in Charlotte, North Carolina, which also left a man dead.
The efforts of the Portland chapter of the Satanic Temple to bring an after-school program called After School Satan to a Portland elementary school have succeeded. The Oregonian Oregon Live reports the organization's been approved to begin a program on October 19th at Sacramento Elementary School. Group leader Finn Rez says their program focuses on science and rational thinking. It will promote benevolence and empathy for everybody. The group seeks to counter the influence of Christian after-school programs such as Good News Clubs. Such programs have popped up at schools in the wake of a 2001 U.S. Supreme Court ruling that paved the way for religious organizations to establish after-school activities at public school facilities.
Fertility doctors using a brand new technique to eliminate inherited disease have helped a woman deliver a baby with 3 genetic parents. The child, who is now 5 months old, has the usual DNA from his mom and dad, plus genetic code from a female donor. The method was carried out in Mexico by US Dr. John Zhang and his team, as the procedure is illegal in America. It means the child is now free of a fatal disorder known as Lee syndrome, which, carried in his mother's genes, led to the deaths of 2 previous children. Experts say the move heralds a new era in medicine and could help other families with rare genetic conditions. However, critics say it's playing God and insist such controversial techniques have rigorous checks.
These visitors are enjoying the dramatic scenery of Norway's remote Arctic islands. In July, tourism to Svalbard was up 14% over the previous year. But more people also means more contact with one of the local residents, polar bears. Despite the bears' fearsome reputation, when humans and bears face off, the bears usually lose. Svalbard police say 4 bears have been shot already this year. Normally, only 1 or 2 would be killed in an entire year. One of the bears was killed by a group of tourists from Finland. Another was found dead near the campsite of a group of researchers. In addition to the increasing visitors, global warming is melting the ice where the bears live. As their habitat literally shrinks around them, the bears are forced into closer contact with permanent residents. Polar bears are a protected species in Norway, and shooting them is allowed only for self-defense. Local officials are working to educate visitors on how to protect themselves from the bears, in hopes of protecting the bears from the people.
Creepy clowns popping up across the country. You've likely seen reports in other states of clowns freaking people out or even trying to lure children. Here in central Indiana, Metro Police are also fielding calls. But is it a concern? The Now's Mike Pelton is working for you, figuring out who is behind the mask. Mike?
Well, Candace, recently Metro Police have checked out at least 4 complaints of creepy clowns. While they haven't seen anything criminal, some say it's time to stop clowning around. Now, today I spoke with a Pittsboro woman who tells me she spotted 3 kids in clown masks driving around her neighborhood yesterday. If not a concern, it's at the very least unusual. With 3 easily spooked young children herself, she's leery of anybody putting on a clown costume, especially after recent headlines show creepy clown sightings across the country. Metro Police tell me they've only dealt recently with unfounded complaints about clowns, but on social media it's clear not everybody is laughing.
Some of them are more violent and some of them again are just harmless pranks, but nowadays with, you know, just everything that goes on, you just never know. You never know who's going to be the harmless prank and who's going to be the one with a knife that's going to, you know, do something and be violent and hurt you. So
Franklin Police Fire and EMS. Hi, I just got home from work and got out of my car, and I have heard so much about this, I didn't even know this was actually true, but I just got chased by a clown up into my door of my apartment.
Okay, where do you live? Where was the last place you saw it?
Well, we live, it's kind of backed up into like a privacy fence, so I live up a balcony, and right before I got to the steps, it ran around the side of the building, and I just ran as fast as I could up into the balcony and shut my door.
Like behind the apartments?
Yeah, it was behind my building.
Which apartment do you live in?
Apartment 5, and we don't have a number on our door, but it's the glass, like, French doors at the top.
Did he say anything to you, make any threats, or just chased you?
No, it just ran at me.
And what's your name?
Jenna.
And I know this is a silly question, but can you give me a description?
It was like a full clown suit. All I saw really was white and red, and it wasn't like it was like a plastic mask or like a all over like full mask around his head.
Okay.
It wasn't like a wig or anything like that. It was all one piece.
All right, we'll send somebody out in the area, okay? Do you want to see an officer, or you just want us to see if we can find them?
Maybe just check the area.
Okay, we will.
We mentioned the kids were being evacuated to Oakdale Baptist Church. That is where they were taken by bus to meet their parents. And Dave Jordan is there. And Dave, we see you now. So Dave, bring us up to speed. What do you see there?
Well, Gordon, we have a lot of relieved parents coming to Oakdale Baptist Church. This is where the parents of Townville students, elementary students, were told to come to pick up their children. I'm going to get a shot over my shoulder. This is what is greeting them when they arrive here. You see a lot of police cars, but you also see a long line of cars, sort of like a number of cars just waiting so they can pull over and retrieve their children. Now, if you can pan over to the left, this is a little bit of a traffic jam right now, people trying to navigate as well. I've spoken to a couple of parents, many of them shedding tears of relief, very overwhelmed by the events of the day, as you as a parent, Gordon, could certainly imagine. Others are making their way, parking away from the school, from the church right now, rather, and walking up the hill to go and retrieve those children. We have a police officer, a sheriff's deputy as well, directing traffic. As I mentioned, many people coming in the distance from all over the area to try to see if their children are among the ones that were taken here, which is where some of the parents have been told to route. There is also a heavy police presence here, independent of directing traffic. You can see some of the flashing blue lights, many of them standing guard, a lot of parents talking on cell phones, communicating with people. This is a very highly charged scene right now, and we are going to stay here and continue to cover it as these developments unfold throughout the day. A lot of parents relieved, some anxious, but many of them hoping to be reunited with their children that they haven't seen since this morning when they dropped them off, or when the bus dropped them off at Townville Elementary.
Dave, how are they doing that? The reuniting of parents and kids. You know, they have a lot of very strict procedures for how parents pick up their kids at the school, but this is a terrifying and unusual situation. What are they doing?
Well, what they're doing, and the buses are taking children here, which is what my understanding is. We've seen at least 2 or 3 school buses. Scott Metzger is working on the camera for me. Scott, if you can zoom in beyond the church sign, you can see one of the school buses here. Presumably, that school bus is filled with children, dropping them off to this location so that they can be reunited with their parents. Now I'm going to have the camera pan a little more, if possible. Right over my shoulder, you can see parents walking away with their children. Take a shot right here. These are some of the parents who have collected their children and are walking back to the cars, many of them relieved, children clinging to their parents. Some of them were even crying, highly emotional, as you can imagine. People want to be reunited with their kids. This is a very emotional scene right now, and it's also a very dramatic scene that is playing out in real time. This is something that schools prepare for all the time, but it's one of these things, Gordon, stay on the shots. This is one of the things that, schools prepare for all the time, but certainly something they hope does not happen. And that is what we're hearing a lot of right now. A lot of anxiety, a lot of relief for the parents who have finally connected with their children, and a heavy police presence here this afternoon as parents are reunited at Oakdale Baptist Church on Highway 24 in Townville. Gordon?
Yeah, Dave, I'm sorry. As a parent, this is the worst thing that can ever happen, ever, to hear that there's been a shooting at your child's school. So what we're going to do is try and talk to some of those folks responding to that scene, to school officials, about how they're organizing that. That was Oakdale Baptist Church, where the kids from Townville Elementary, as Dave showed you, some of the buses bringing those kids in. We watched as they were evacuated from the school there today, and now those parents who at some point today got a phone call from Anderson District 4 saying there's been a shooting at your child's school. Don't pick them up at the school. Pick them up at Oakdale Baptist. A terrifying situation and heartbreaking to watch. You saw these kids clinging to their mothers and fathers as they're being walked away.